We're really excited to see you here today. Some housekeeping things to talk about as far as Zoom norms is to make sure that your microphone is muted when you come in. And we also want to make sure that you use the chat for questions. So if anyone doesn't know how to use chat, usually at the bottom of your screen is a chat box. So you can click on that and it kind of brings up the discussions that are going on. And so you can take a minute to find that, find your chat box and say hi. Let's all introduce ourselves and everyone just kind of say that you're here, that you're, we want to welcome you. Roberta also mentioned that we have muted all participants for now. So when we do have a time for discussion, we're going to go ahead and take the time to unmute you as we go. And we're also in the chat. You could share what schools you represent. Okay, and as we look to get started, I want to introduce myself. I'm Lisa Vorse. I'm the dietitian with Twin Rivers Unified School District Nutrition Services. And we're really excited about the month of October because we have a lot of things going on in October, such as National School Lunch Week, which is next week, where we'll be really featuring all the important aspects of school nutrition and the part that plays in helping kids succeed at school and really thrive on the playground and the classroom and as they grow and learn. We also have Harvest of the Month, so a lot of teachers are participating where we send fruits and vegetables into the classroom for taste tests and nutrition curriculum, and that's starting next week as well. And some other fun farm to school activities happening later in the month, such as Apple Crunch Day and Healthy Celebration Day, which will be on the last day of the month as well. So we are really excited to share all of the great things that we have going on in nutrition services and are really glad that your students are participating with us. So let's get started today. Health Education Council is also supporting this webinar, our series, our Healthy Family series with curriculum and funding. And we always like to make sure we recognize them and their mission to promote nutrition and nutrition education at schools and within all of our communities. Over the next, we will be here this week, and then we'll be back every Wednesday at 3 o'clock for 3 more times. So we're going to be going through, I think it's November 4th. And we'll be here every Wednesday at 3 o'clock with the Zoom cooking demonstrations and nutrition tips and cooking. And we're going to get started today talking about creating balanced meals together. And Jeff T is going to be showing us a recipe and some quick and easy ways to make sure we can get meals on the table. The recipe that she's doing for us today is called garlic ginger ramen. And she'll also be showing us other, kitchen hacks and ways that we can use other appliances to make sure that we can prepare our foods. So we're going to get started with a quick poll. This is a little My Plate quiz, and we have 3 questions to see what you know about My Plate. So we're going to let you answer these questions, and then we can share the results.
And for families, just really quickly, the questions say, what is the main message communicated by the My Plate icon? And there's 4 different choices. Question number 2 says, what are the 5 groups in my plate? And then 3 says dry beans, eggs, and nuts are in which food group? And then you are able to also select, obviously within the parentheses or brackets, it's also the Spanish translation. So please take a moment to select an answer And we appreciate your participation as well.
Okay. So just starting out, so it looks like everybody, a big portion of people answered this question of what about the main message of the My Plate, and it was designed to inspire healthy eating by using a graphic that's easy to understand, and that's exactly correct. It really wanted it. I think the message was try to eat like this every day, and if you notice, half your plate is fruits and vegetables. Really good, I think. And then the next one was, what are the 5 food groups in My Plate? And it looks like 75% said protein, grains, dairy, fruits, and vegetables. And that is correct. But the 17% protein, grains, vegetables, fruit, and milk is also correct. I think there's been some, a couple of changes in the what we call the food groups, and some versions are showing dairy as a food group, and other versions are showing milk as the food group. So it's perfect. You're both correct. And then finally, what do we count as protein foods? And this one was a little tricky, but they were asking dry beans, eggs, and nuts are in which food group? And everybody knows their protein because you called that all a protein. So I love it. Another little thing to know is though beans are actually can be in the vegetable group. So in the school food service, we actually count our beans, such as our chickpeas and different things. So we count those as a vegetable or a protein. So, but you really, beans, eggs, and nuts are really a great source of non-meat protein, and we like to include those in our diet as much as possible. All right, very good. So the next thing that we're going to do is we're going to actually move right over to Chef T, and she's going to share with us our recipe for the day and really go over the ingredients and the things that are part of this recipe. I do believe that Araberto shared a link with you so that you could also download this recipe for yourself, and that was in the invitation that you received. So here is the recipe. All right, Chef T, let's get started.
Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to week 2 of Healthy Families Cooking Together. Today, we're going to make a recipe called garlic ginger ramen with beef. It's a very easy recipe. It's one of those recipes that's good for if you have to take the kids to soccer practice or the baseball practice or whatever, and you only have a short time to cook dinner before you have to get out the house to do your second task. The whole recipe, this is a recipe that I have made at home, and it takes about 25 minutes or so from start to finish. If you have your recipes, it asks for a half pound of lean ground beef, and lean ground beef is beef with 15% fat or less, and that's something we'll talk about as we're preparing the recipe. It has 2 cups of water, 2 packages of Oriental style ramen noodles, and those are the blue packages. Now they don't call them Oriental style, they call them soy sauce. Okay, so you need the ones in the blue package. It asks for 16 ounces of frozen stir-fried vegetables. I got a stir-fried blend, which has broccoli, carrots, snap peas, and yellow pepper. And again, I got it at the dollar store. Okay, so, and then it asks for 2 green onions thinly sliced. And all they mean is that you're cutting them, taking your green onions and cutting them into sections, much like this. And here are the ends or the bottom parts. And then it asks for a tablespoon of fresh ginger, or a 1/4 teaspoon of ground ginger, or 2 cloves of garlic minced, or a 1/2 teaspoon of garlic powder. When I'm doing a recipe like this, because there is literally nothing to cut, I do go ahead and use the dry ingredients, because then You're not messing up a knife just to cut ginger or garlic. So with that said, let's go ahead and get started on our recipe. Okay, so what we're going to do again, I'm going to go ahead and heat up my skillet. And look at this skillet, isn't it lovely? Okay, so we're going to go ahead and start on our recipe. I'm going to heat up my skillet. And look at this skillet. You wouldn't believe that I got this skillet for $17 at the grocery outlet. This skillet, if you got it in a can, it's a Gotham steel skillet. If you got them in a pan set, the whole set would cost you $300 for one skillet, 3 pots, and a couple lids. It's much easier to get this way. Okay, and it's supposed to be non-stick and everything. So we're going to go ahead and put that on and let it start getting heat. And we're going to add, this is just regular old canola oil. And we're just putting the canola oil in just to keep it from sticking down the bottom. Okay, so it asks for 15% fat for your ground beef. If you look at your ground beef when you go to buy it, it'll tell you on the label exactly how much fat it is. The most common package you'll find is the 80-20, which is 80% beef and 20% fat. When getting your beef, the higher the fat number, that means the more fat it has. So we're going to go ahead and start the browning. Now, what you have to keep in mind when purchasing ground beef and stuff like this, a lot of us are on a budget, and a lot of us are really health conscious and everything. And it's not so much buying as it is knowing what you're buying and knowing what to do with what you're buying. And I say that because I had a really hard time finding the 85% beef and 15% fat ground beef. And when I did find it, it was $5.99 a pound on sale. Okay, and yes, that blew my hair back. So a lot of it in cooking is knowing what you have to cook with and knowing how to work with what you have. So what you have to think about, one of the lowest ends is 73.27. That means 73% beef, 27% fat. What that means is that when you cook your ground beef, you'll get a lot more fat, so you have to make sure you drain it good. Your protein grams are just about the same, but your calories go up. So so when you're doing the 73.27, you're looking at maybe about 250 calories per 3-ounce serving. Whereas the 80-20, you're going to get 20% fat. You're looking at about 14 grams of fat and about 231 calories. The one that they're asking you to use here, the 85% 15, you're getting about 200 or so calories, maybe a little bit more, and you're getting about 12% fat. So that's what you have to keep in mind when you're making this, and adjust your calories and stuff accordingly. We're just taking the ground beef and we're stirring it up. That's all we're doing, is browning it and cooking it real quick. And right now it's stirring in bigger chunks, but as you start stirring it and stuff, it'll start crumbling down. And as I said before, we're just using plain stuff. While we're letting this crumble down, let's go ahead and fix our ramen noodles. You're going to use the ramen noodles, but all you're going to do is break them up. And you're breaking them up so that they're not long strands and everything when you go to cook them. Yeah, I was laughing with Lisa a little while ago because when my children were growing up, they used to take the ramen noodles and they hit it against the wall on the table and crunch them really small. And then take the seasoning packs out and just sprinkle it in the noodles and shake it up and then walk around eating it like that. I thought it was kind of gross, but like I told them, if they like it, I love it. Yeah, have a good time eating your noodles. So this recipe, you're going to use 1 pack of the seasoning mix. So though we don't need them right now, it's always good to be ready. And so there are the ramen noodles. They're crunched up, they're broken up in small bits. Here's the 1 pack of soy sauce seasoning, and the other one is going there. So see, our meat is almost brown. Remember last week, I told you hot and cold spatula. 1 spatula, you can use it for your batters and stuff, and you can actually use it to cook with. And a good thing about that is knowing little things like that, those are little utensil items and stuff you can actually get at the Dollar Tree or at the grocery outlet or at the 99-cent store for little or no money at all. Okay, so our beef is almost done. And what we have to do is drain it. What I'm going to drain it in is a regular plastic Rubbermaid container. What you want to do is when you go to drain your beef, you want to make sure you drain the grease because you're actually going to end up throwing the grease away. You can't reuse the grease. So you actually want to make sure you drain it into something that will hold the heat for a while to give it enough time to cool down. And then if it's something that you can throw the whole thing away, fine. If not, you can take it from there, which is what I usually do, and put it in a Ziploc bag or whatever and throw it away. To drain it, there are a couple of ways you could drain it. You could drain it into a colander, or you could get something like this. This is what they call a splatter screen. And these are also, you can find them at the Dollar Tree. And all it is something you can stick it on the top of your skillet like this. And then it'll drain your beef. Without letting your meat fall out. See, that's not bad for a Dollar Tree. Okay, so what we're going to do then is we're going to put 2 cups of water, one seasoning pack, and I'm going to put these out in the water simply because it's easier to mix them up and make sure you get a good mix. We're going to put the ginger powder, as well as the garlic powder. Whisk it around real quick to make sure we get a nice blend on it. We're going to put the white parts of our green onions in there with the beef. We're going to take all the water and put it in there. See, so what you're doing, this is the flavoring for your dish. And by you put it in the water like that, it helps pick up some of the meat flavor and everything as well. And this is one of those easy recipes if you decide that you want to scale it up or scale it down. If you want to scale it down, just use 1 package of ramen noodles, of the noodles. Or if you want to scale it up, you can add another pack of noodles, or to make it even healthier, just add more vegetables. Okay, then we're just going to take, and we're going to go ahead and put the vegetables in it. Like I said, this is a very quick and easy dish. And now that we have all the meat and the vegetables in it, we're going to go ahead and just let that come to a boil. And while it's boiling, we'll go to Lisa and Johanna so they can talk to you about my plate.
Thank you so much, Chef T. I really enjoyed how you broke down the understanding the different meats and the different ground beefs and how to discern which one was, the higher fat or the 80% versus 75%. I really appreciate that. That was really informative for me and for so many of us, I think. Now, while we're waiting for the water to boil and for the next part of our recipe, we're going to go ahead and get started just talking a little bit more about my plate. And I'm going to let Joanna talk a little bit right now about that.
Thank you, Lisa. So I know we all took that poll and we did talk a little bit about my plate last week. So this should be kind of like a review for you guys. And you guys all did really well on that poll. So I know you guys know a lot about my plate already. And like we said, it was designed to inspire healthy eating by using this graphic that's easy to understand and that's visually familiar to a variety of people. So before it was the plate, it was the pyramid. I think many of you remember the food pyramid. And I think it was just a little bit too, difficult to understand for everyone. So that's why they changed it to the plate. And I think the plate is just a lot easier visually to remember. I know for me, it's easier to visualize the different, when I'm making my plate, the different sections of where I should fill my plate with, half of it should be vegetables. And then it should have fruits in there as well as whole grains, and then the protein, which should be smaller as well, and then including some sort of dairy element into your plate. And I know a lot of you guys had questions in the chat as well regarding oils and all of that. And we'll go through a little bit of that as well right now. And for the oils, we would recommend minimally processed vegetable oils. For your dairy products, it's more generalized, so it would be it wouldn't just specifically be milk, but any sort of fat-free or low-fat dairy product, which would be milk if that's what you would like, or yogurt or cheese. And then for your grains, you want to make sure half of them are whole grains. And we'll be talking a little bit more about whole grains in the next few weeks as well. And then for your fruits, you want to make sure that those are whole fruits. And what that means would probably be to include the skin part of, say, like an apple, or if you have plums. I know those can be a little bit difficult to eat, but those actually have the most fiber when it comes to the fruit. So you want to make sure you eat the whole fruit. And with your vegetables, that it's a variety of them, which would be a variety of colors, which is red or orange. The dark green vegetables, which I know can be a little bit difficult to eat, as well as the legumes, the beans, and the peas, like Lisa mentioned. And for your proteins, to include seafood and lean meats, and then your poultry and eggs, as well as the legumes and nuts and seeds. And then we're going to talk a little bit more about, we want to go to the next slide. Okay, so this is another example of another healthy eating plate, and this is from Harvard. So they're somewhat the same essentially as the My Plate. This one just has more in-depth details on exactly what you can include. And if you notice, compared to the other My Plate, this one, instead of having a dairy element, it has water. And then it also includes the healthy oils, which I know you guys were asking about. And for the healthy oil examples, those would be like olive oil or canola oil. So it would be vegetable oils. And you want to limit like butter and trans fat. And the healthiest oil that you could use would be olive oil. And that one, it doesn't even have like a strong taste. I always use olive oil. I prefer it. And it's definitely the healthiest one that you could use in your cooking. And then the other difference for this one is that it has a bigger section for vegetables, and your whole grains and proteins are equally divided. And like I mentioned, this one just has more in-depth and detail on what you should include in your plate. Okay, we go to the next slide. Okay, and this is just some examples of serving sizes. Like for fats, it would be kind of like the size of your fingertip, so about 1 teaspoon. That would be, your oils, butter, mayonnaise. For proteins, it would be the size of your palm. So this is just another tip, or if it's easier for you to use like your hand. And then for dairies, it would be about the size of your thumb, so like 2 tablespoons. Now we go to the next slide. And then for snacks, it would be about the size of a cupped hand. And then that would include like nuts or dried fruits, or for chips or pretzels. And then for your vegetables, you would want to do like 2 handfuls. Comparing that to the My Plate, that's the one that should be the most on your plate. And then if you have for carbs, like rice or cereal, it would just be like the size of a fist. And then for some tips for portion control, you want to use smaller plates and cups. That way your portion will appear larger than it is, because sometimes, you get a big plate and you want to fill it up. But you just want to remember, if you are worried about your portion sizes, just, a smaller plate. And then just remember to visualize that My Plate and fill in your plate accordingly. And it can be hard to have fruit as part of like a dinner. So you could have that be as your dessert. And then you could, include some dairy with it. So have like a healthy smoothie or something would be a good way to combine your fruits and your dairies as part of your plate. I could go next slide. I think it would be for Lisa. You want to take over? Oh, you're on mute.
Sorry about that. I really like how you mentioned just using smaller plates. I think I did a training back when we could be in person, and we actually took like my bowl from home, and then we did measuring cups, and we measured a regular cereal bowl, and saw that we were eating so much more than just like the recommended portion size. So that's a nice little exercise to do at home as well, is take out your cereal bowl and your milk cup and your juice cup and the things that your kids are, coming home from school and filling up a big cup with milk, and really find out how much they're actually drinking or eating. It's pretty eye-opening. And then I also liked how you mentioned fruit for dessert. So sometimes after we eat, we want something sweet. And so like some sliced melon with a few grapes in it or something like that can be really satisfying for the sweet tooth to complete the meal. And it's also, part of the My Plate. So those are awesome tips. We wanted to talk for a second about redesigning plates or redesigning dinner, and what are some quick and easy ways that we can make our meals, get more, pack in more nutrients into our meals, and make a few little swap outs that can make our meal more nutritious, or have a little bit more nutrient dense items in it. So when we looked at this meal of fried chicken, white rice, salad with lettuce and cucumbers and whole milk, I think we're going to take to the chat, and we're going to just throw out some suggestions on what we could do to transform this plate a little bit to take in some of that My Plate information that Joanna just shared. let's do some chat and just look at this and see what are ways to make it more colorful, what are ways to add more whole grain, lower our fat. Let's see. Baked chicken, I like it. So yeah, when we bake or grill instead of frying, we decrease a lot of fat in our food too. Oh, you caught that, the whole milk versus low fat milk. Yes, they recommend that whole milk is really only for babies up to the age of 1 year old, or from 1 year old to 2 years old. And then after that, they need to go on to low fat or non-fat milk. Good. And then we also have the brown rice, so we can definitely switch to some more whole grain options, at least, you know, half the time, and try to make more of a commitment to choosing that whole grain, because then you're getting all of the nutrition that came with the rice to begin with. It wasn't processed to take out all of those, the fiber and the natural ingredients. That's good. And any last little suggestions? Perfect. Oh, I love that. Adding the dark greens, adding dark green vegetables to your salad instead of that iceberg lettuce. Yeah. We really can see that coupling those of just a few changes to what you buy and then what you put on your family's plate or on your plate as well can make a big difference in your long-term health and changes to how you feel about things. So here's another quick and easy one, because we've all had those quick and easy meals when we are eating out, and it's, you know, you're on the way to soccer practice or to events in the evenings, and we all wind up with those the hamburgers on the white bun, the French fries, and a milkshake. But what's something that we could have done differently if we were cooking at home, or if we're eating out, even like some way to add more nutrition to that? Yep, the whole wheat bun and sweet potato fries. Oh, I didn't even think about that. That's wonderful. Then you're getting those dark orange vegetables to it. Someone mentioned smoothie instead of milkshake. So now you're getting your low-fat dairy along with some fresh fruits all mixed together, decreasing like your condiment, the mayonnaise and the fat. Another hack that I'm thinking of, just from what Chef T taught us, is making sure we're using that the lower fat meat, or the higher percentage meat, as we're making our hamburger patty. All right, let's look at another one. This one is our traditional pasta meal, and it looks like we're serving a lot of what I ended up serving my husband for dinner last night: the pasta with the tomato sauce. We've got the garlic bread with the butter and soda. So what could we have done differently? I'm liking water or juice, definitely. We should, having soda with our meals is not always the best choice. Whole wheat pasta. Yeah, and I've been enjoying the whole grain rice, brown rice pasta. That's pretty good. And then replacing sweet potato to replace the bread. I really like that. I'm gonna try that. I was wondering about adding some protein to it as well, like, something flavorful. Very good. Okay. Oh, and we have a good recommendation here too about the pea pastas. Is anyone, if you've played with those at all, those are interesting. They've got some vegetable pastas out there now. So when you go down the aisle with the pasta sauces and all the noodles, check those out. There's some interesting ones. Some of them are different colors and different things, and I've had fun with the kids playing with those too. Oh, I like this one. Throw veggies in the pasta. I like that a lot. Wonderful. Good. Okay. All right. So I think we've got that discussion going where we've got some opportunities to really think about how we can make small changes in what we're eating and what we're serving and preparing to change habits and change our picky eaters' minds and different things by just offering little changes here and there. And this is a good little exercise that we could be doing all the time. So just making those little changes as you go along. So now we're going to check in with Chef T to make sure our noodles aren't boiling over and see how to finish this recipe.
Hi, welcome back. Okay, so by now we have our beef and our vegetables and everything on the stove boiling. And what we're going to do is take our noodles and we're just going to sprinkle them in on top. Now, the trick to this is to make sure you stir it so that you get your you get your noodles to where they're actually in the water because they have to cook. Now, this is one of the dishes. I actually love dishes like this. Not just because they're quick and they're easy, but this is the perfect way to use leftovers. If you have leftover Sunday dinner, that leftover roast, that leftover chicken, whatever you have left over, you could substitute it for the meat in here. If you have trouble getting, like, for some reason, I had the hardest time finding the Oriental flavor ramen noodles. I could find the chicken flavor, I could find the beef flavor, the shrimp flavor, I could find every flavor but this. And had I not been making this recipe for you, I would have just used what I found and put my own seasonings in it and made it my way. And that's some of the things that I want you guys to think about when you're trying to cook. There is no right or wrong way to cook. If you don't have what the recipe says, the recipe isn't written in stone, it's to guide you along the way. Find what seasonings and stuff you like, substitute it for the seasoning packet that was in it. You don't know if it's going to taste good? Well, there's only one way to find out. Put a little bit in there, taste it, and add stuff as you go along. Now, I do that at home all the time. I put a little bit of salt in there, taste it. If it's not enough, I'll put a little more in there, taste it again. Then if I feel I have enough salt, but it still tastes like I need something else, I go to the spice shelf. And I just start picking spices and put a little bit of whatever in there until I get the taste that I want. The thing, you can also add your leftover vegetables and stuff that you don't eat. This is one of those, this is the more colors that you have in it, the better it looks. And so you can add your colors by way of vegetables. And put you some red bell peppers in there. If you got some mushrooms that are looking kind of drabby, cut them up, put them in there. Put some tomatoes in there, whatever to give your dish a little bit of color. Okay, and suppose you're challenged in a way that you don't have the right utensils. Say you don't have an oven, say where you don't have a stove. You can make this in the microwave. You'll have to cook your beef separately. And then you can put the water and the vegetables and the noodles all in the water together. Make sure they're in a microwave safe bowl. Put like a lid on it or a paper towel that If you put a lid on it, don't put it all the way flat on there. Make it so that your stuff could breathe, and let it go ahead and cook that way. And then add your meat that you've cooked into it. You can make this in a pot. If you don't have a skillet, make it in a pot. You can make it in an electric skillet. You know, this is one of those, it's very versatile in what you could do. If you don't have frozen vegetables, you don't have to use frozen vegetables, use canned vegetables. Just remember, canned vegetables, all you basically need to do is heat them because they've already been pressurized, and so they're already tender. And so you don't want to boil them for long periods of time, because the longer you boil them, the more of your nutrition you lose. You use fresh vegetables, you have to cook it a little longer because you have to actually make those tender. You know, it's a very easy dish, but like I was saying last week, guys, invest in spices, invest in herbs. You don't have to break the bank, you don't have to spend $1 million. Just go pick some stuff up off the shelf. You know, that's one of the things that I love that I passed on to my son. Now my son has a whole cupboard full of spices and stuff, although he likes everything hot. But he still has a whole cupboard full of spices. He makes his spices. He's always, Mom, look at this, Mom, come taste this, come taste this. Because it's fun to practice with spices. You don't know what you like until you try it. Okay, so this is budget friendly. And see, when it cooks, this is how it looks when it cooks. Okay, now in making this dish, I am going to tell you there are a couple things that I didn't like about it. One of the things is you're using 2 packs of noodles, you're using a pound of vegetables, you're using a half a pound of beef, but you're only using 1 packet of seasoning. It's cutting down on your calories and on your sodium and stuff, but it actually, to me, when it's like this, it doesn't have enough flavor. So, you know, it doesn't say it in the recipe, but add a little salt and pepper. If you like, when I cook mine at home, I like soy sauce. I didn't add salt and pepper. I just put a little bit of soy sauce on it, and it was great. I also didn't like the fact that it asked for a specific fat content of meat, and that particular fat content was $3 higher a pound than, you know, something I could have gotten for cheaper. And all I'm saying is improvise. You know what your budget is. You know how much you could afford. Keep in mind, the important thing is knowing that as your percentages go up, that means your fat goes up. So keep in mind that 73-27 beef and an 80% 20% beef, or they're both beef, the protein amount stays about the same, but your fat is going to increase, which means your calories are going to increase. And those are the things you have to keep in mind. Okay, you could take, the good thing about this is you can make it like the day before, store it in some Tupperware. Next day you come home, you're pressed for time, put it on a microwave safe plate, throw it in the microwave, dinner's done. And see, when it actually finishes completing, now it's completely finished cooking. And if you look at it, see, there's no water content. It's more or less like a stir fry. But you have noodles, you have beef. It looks like you have a whole lot of beef in there where you've only used a half a pot. So you've used 8 ounces, which is basically a cup of beef. But the way it's dispersed in there, you'll get beef in every bite. And then you have your carrots and your peas. You have to keep in mind when using frozen vegetables that the frozen vegetables will have a water content. So they're also cooked. So as you can see, the carrots and stuff, by them being harder vegetables, are still intact, but the snow peas kind of fell apart. And that's what you have to keep in mind when you're using frozen vegetables, that they do have a water content. And so if you want to turn your heat up higher and get your water on to boil quicker, that'll keep them from falling apart. Or making sure they're thawed, and after put your noodles in and stuff, and after your noodles cook, then stir your vegetables through and heat it through that way. That'll keep them from falling apart too. So this is basically your garlic ginger ramen with beef. And serving. To serve it, you simply put it on a plate. Sprinkle some green onions on it. And that will go very good with a nice little side salad or a tomato cucumber salad and some biscuits or a nice piece of cornbread or something. Okay, so with that, that's our recipe for today. And now we're going to send it to Lisa and Johanna and open it up for questions.
All right. Well, thank you so much. That looks delicious. I had one quick question. Could you share with us what other things you could do with a ramen noodle? Because, you know, I'm not crazy about the kids eating that for snack time on the playground, but, you know, because we prefer them to eat fruits and vegetables and everything. But like you said, the kids are going to eat it and like it, and that's all good. But there could be some easy things that we could do with ramen, or even train like our future college students to, you know, different ways to make ramen a little healthier and really get some good uses out of it.
Well, the best way to make your ramen healthier is not to use the seasoning packet. I used to cook ramen and everything for my boys growing up, but I was never a ramen eater, a ramen noodle person. But what I found that since they've left and I live alone now, I love ramen noodles.
Mm-hmm.
I don't eat them like ramen. I use them in stir fry. I'll take them and boil the noodles and drain them, and then I'll use them in stir fry. I use them in soups. I've even put spaghetti sauce in them and used them as a spaghetti or a pasta like that. Whatever I would use a regular noodle for, if I want to make it quicker and easier, it's easier just to use ramen noodles.
That is such a good tip. It just kind of really opens up things, you know, as you are, you know, if you're cooking just for one or two, or just need some of those quick things, because it cooks so quick and you really can't mess it up. I love it. We had one question. What was the cost of the recipe that you made today?
The cost of the recipe?
Mm-hmm.
The most expensive thing in this recipe was the beef. And the beef, you have to actually get in a pound, and it was like $4.99 a pound. But the ramen noodles were $1 each. The vegetables, like I said, I got it for $1. The green onions, I got a whole bundle of green onions for 79 cents. And the ginger powder and garlic powder are just stuff I have on my spice shelf. So this whole recipe cost maybe $5, $6. But look at how many people you could feed with it. You know, you could feed a family of 4 decently with just this meal. And it's something that even the kids would like, because most kids that I know love ramen noodles.
Some other questions that we got was, someone mentioned that the Oriental brand of noodles are hard to find. Which I think that reflects what you had said, Chef T, that it was hard for you to find that specific brand. Is there a different, would it be okay if they use the beef or the chicken seasoning, as long as they use the garlic and the ginger in the recipe?
Yeah, the thing is, I don't know whether the Oriental flavor ramen noodles are always hard to find, or the soy sauce brand, I'm sorry, whether it's always hard to find, or whether, like most things, they're only hard to find when I'm looking for them. But it doesn't matter what flavor you use. Everything could be adapted. You could take this recipe and instead of using the ground beef, you can get some ground chicken or turkey and do the same thing using chicken noodles. You could do it using the shrimp flavored noodles. The fact is, you can actually make this dish and not use the seasoning packet at all. Grab the stuff. When I do stuff at home, I grab the stuff off my seasoning board. I have a drawer with packs like this in it because I never use the seasoning packets. I always grab stuff off the spice rack and use it.
All right, some other questions that we got. The best oil to use. So I know when we talk about for nutrition, everyone touts the olive oil, but as a chef, what's the best oil that you typically like to use?
Well, for me, my favorite oil to use is canola. And I like to use canola oil just because it has a higher smoke point. Olive oil burns really quick. And so if I use olive oil, most of the time I'll get an olive oil vegetable blend or an olive canola blend so that the smoke point will be just a little higher because especially someone like me, my house has very sensitive smoke detectors. So sometimes the smoke detectors go off and I don't even see any smoke. And so it's easier to get something with a higher smoke point to make sure that you could cook it without turning on your, without setting off your smoke detectors and everything. And canola oil is actually a fairly healthy oil.
So we did have another question asking about peanut oils and if they're good for it, if they're good or recommended. Do you ever use peanut oil in your cooking?
Yes, I've used peanut oil before, but peanut oil has a taste. And if I'm doing something like pad thai or something like that, where I could benefit from the peanut taste, I could go ahead and use peanut oil. But I like canola because it doesn't have a taste. Every now and then I may use a corn oil, but that also has a taste. So I prefer something that doesn't have a taste because I want the taste from my food to come from what I put in the food, not the oil that I'm cooking it in.
Yes, I agree. So even with that, with the peanut oil, it is a like a vegetable-based oil, but it's all moderation too. So if you're going to be using the peanut oil, it would be because you were making a recipe and wanted those flavors and different things. And so with all oils that we use, we really want to remember to use them in moderation and just for cooking our food. And we do want to limit our fried foods that we're eating as well. Okay, Chef T, another thing that we had was just mentioning that some of the other little things, like pureed vegetables in the ramen. So you added, no, that was in like pizza sauce, but you added vegetables to your ramen. And do you find that you do that a lot, that you can like easily sneak in vegetables to a lot of your recipes?
Sneak vegetables in your recipes?
Do I sneak recipes?
Vegetables?
Well, I don't really sneak vegetables into my recipes because I'm a vegetable eater. And because I like a lot of vegetables, my family has grown up liking vegetables. And so I don't usually have to sneak them in, but I do put vegetables in almost everything I cook. I'm a bell pepper lover. And I like red bells, green bells, yellow bells. I want the color. I want the whole color, all the colors in there, and onions. So I'm a big pepper and onion person.
Awesome. All right. Well, we'd like to thank everybody for joining us today. We're real close to ending.
I have a question.
Oh, yes, please, Lucinda.
Okay, so 2 cloves of garlic. So do I mince that into 1 tablespoon and add that to the water?
Okay, for the garlic, for this particular recipe, it asks for 2 cloves. So you would mince the 2 cloves of garlic and you would actually put those You can add them with the water, but the thing is onions and garlics are what they call aromatics, as is the ginger. So they're the ones that makes the smell all through the house that makes people hungry and want to eat. So whenever
Okay.
I'm doing something, although this recipe says to add the ginger and the garlic when you add the water and everything to boil, me personally, I would have added any onions, any garlic, any ginger. I would have put that in the skillet when I dropped my meat.
Okay, okay. And then one more question, I'm sorry. So you said one package of the ramen noodle package in with the water. You only added one, not the second one, right?
Yes, that's what the
Okay.
recipe called for.